Then with Auckland Theatre Company there, it got converted into the current configuration of those very steep seats. I don't know if any of you know it, but you get a bit of vertigo just sitting at the top. But that was done with Auckland Theatre Company in mind, and that got 186 seats, and so they grew their business and grew their subscriber base to make that work, and then from that they then took on the Maidment Theatre, which is a 440 seat theatre just down the road, grew the audience some more, worked hard, and then 12 years ago they did their first show in Sky City, which is the big 700 seat theatre over at the casino. So that being a company without a building gave them flexibility also about program, because you can do the type of show you would do 186 seater is not the kind of big show that you would do in a Sky City show. So it also meant we had the revenue earning capacity of doing a really big show at Sky City, unless it all went wrong and you lost a shitload of money, which would pay for some of the stuff that you might do that is more adventurous, that is a creative outlet for some of the artists you might engage. So that's sort of the sort of schizophrenic model that we created. And our audience travelled around from venue to venue. They're quite used to it now, actually. And they've obviously, there's things they hate about all the venues, each venue. They're often to do with parking. Like a lot of complaints about parking. But that's sort of, I think, a little bit about how the company started. We are increasingly getting a busy touring program around New Zealand. We started this off with mainly looking at shows going to regional festivals. We've done a show that's gone, most recently was Hatch, which went from Whangarei up north all the way down to Invercargill, and has done everywhere in between over the last few years. This year we're embarking on our first sort of more commercial tour of a Roger Hall play, our mid-year show. So we've started at Sky City, and then we're taking it across to the Bruce Mason, and then we're doing the upper half of the North Island, well, that middle block, so it's Tauranga, Hamilton and New Plymouth, and we're trying that out as a new kind of activity for us. So touring's becoming particularly as it's getting increasingly hard to get venues in Auckland for us. Touring's becoming a much bigger part of what we do. We have a dedicated literary unit, because we're, obsessed and focused and passionate about telling New Zealand stories. We're creating opportunities for new writers. So we will commission writers to write things that may take 2 or 3 years to develop. We run a play reading series once a month, which is a tryout for new work. We do workshops of new material. We run if you like a little studio where writers can get feedback on their work. It's kind of core business for us. It's very much at the R&D end of how we go, but it's an absolutely fundamental part that defines Auckland Theatre Company. The other strand to our work, which again for us is core business, is our education program. And we do a lot of work with schools and young people. So we have a lot of students coming to see matinees that we do. In fact, our entire program of matinees for the year sold out within 3 days when we put it on sale at the end of last year. Went very fast.
I love that.
Yeah, we do teachers packs, we do workshops for teachers, we do what else? We do workshops where we go out to schools to follow up on particular productions. We do. We also every so often we run an ambassadors program, which is where students from schools right across the region come to a dedicated ambassador night that we do for every single performance. They're the best nights to go to the theatre because they go off. We started doing these summer schools, which is people that are interested in pursuing a career in theatre and performing arts. They get them together for summer school. And this year, for the first time, we're doing Young and Hungry, which is a Wellington initiative that we're doing up here for the first time, which we've got over 120 people taking part to create this festival where we do 3 plays a night for 3 weeks, which we're doing at the basement. It's the first time we've used the basement. So we have a lot of activity on. We do about 250 performances a year. I think that kind of gives you a bit of a scale of what we do.
How many full-time staff?
We have 15 full-time staff.
And the split of those in terms of creative, artistic,
We have
business administration?
the way the company is structured, and it's interesting to talk about governance, because it follows through from our governance. Our governance model is different from Artemira's. We have our board, which is very important to us, and we have a fantastic group of governance. We have then we have the artistic director, which in our case is Colin McCole, and he has an artistic department of 2 others supporting him, the literary manager and the education manager. And then we have, if you like, the management side, which is the side that I run. And I've got an operations department that also run box office, contracts and finance, production with a dedicated production manager and technical manager, and marketing. We've got a marketing manager, sponsorship and partnerships, and an assistant in there. So the way we look at it for us that works is that we call it like the 3-legged stool. We've got the board, the artistic department, and the general management, and it is like a 3-legged stool. If we're weak in one area, the stool's going to fall over. And so we work very much as a triumvirate, is how we see it. So it's a very equal balance between the business and the art and the governance, and it's a very fluid thing. But we work to keep all 3 arms of the business very strong.
So your board's quite actively involved?
The board meet 4 times a year.
Yeah.
They are incredibly active, though. I mean, like I would talk to our board a lot. I talk to the chair probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And other board members, they all have particular areas of interest. None of them actually come from the creative side. So they all come from business, patronage of the arts. We've got Gordon Moller on our board, who's an architect, who's helping us with some of our venue issues. And one of the partners at PricewaterhouseCoopers, who is very well connected in with the city, Auckland City.
So they give in kind.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They really do. And they're passionate about it. They are great advocates. So we're very, very, very fortunate with them. Flip through my notes. How did I get into it? I've only been with Auckland Theatre Company for 2.5 years, so I haven't been there that long. But I've been working in this sector for nearly 25 years. Forever. So I started off working in the theatre at what an organisation called Playmarket, which is a literary agent. I was their first sort of literary manager, which is it's an agent that looks after writers, New Zealand playwrights, and there's a development agency which is about development of new work. Then I thought, well, I've got to get close to it, so I went and was a stage manager for a few years at Downstage, and that's where I first hooked up with Colin McCole. Did everything from sweeping the floors, changeovers, get close to the coal face. Then I had a stint over in London where I was working for a touring theatre company. Well, they were more like live art, actually. They were pretty wild. It was a collective. They'd come through from the 70s, so they were used to doing kind of happenings and groovy things, and we'd tour around festivals around the UK and into the continent, and that was my first taste of touring. They would do these kind of wild events where they'd take over entire sites and do installations. They'd do shows that have a lot of music in it, and the premise was that theatre is about all the arts coming together. So there's always music, there's always visual arts, and we had like actual artists, visual artists in it, and there's always performance. So it was pretty crazy, and we had these sort of mad studios in the East End, which was pretty wild. So then I finally left them after 5 years, and that's when I first came to Auckland. I worked up at the Edge. It's called the Edge now. Back then it was just the Artia Centre, and I looked after all the programming. So that was working with all the commercial promoters, the big musicals, the rock and roll promoters, the subsidised arts organisations that came into town, that were here, like the opera and the ballet and the orchestras, and then right down to some of the smaller theatre companies that worked here. During that time, we reopened the town hall and we reopened the civic. So the sellable seating capacity